Hello, Pete Moriarty here. Thanks so much for joining me live. If you are on the live stream, if you're new to the channel, we help businesses systemize, organize, and scale using Google Workspace and a suite of other technology tools. And this is my open live stream. I basically jump on and answer as many questions as I can. So I'll be on here for a little while answering questions. If you're on the live, please say hi. Let me know where you are watching from. Drop down your city, country, wherever you are. Maybe give me a link to your business as well. Plenty of other business owners here as well. And you never know who you might network with. So always good to give yourself a shout out when you are introducing yourself. Now, if you're watching the live stream, that's okay. You can still drop me a comment down below the video, and I try and get to as many comments as possible. Just use #repeat. Let me know you're on the repeat, and I will catch you there. All right, I'm just going to check my audio is working okay. Yep, that's looking pretty good. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, if you're interested in asking a question and having me answer it live, it's super simple. You just head along to ask.peter.tv, ask.peter.tv, and there's a Q&A section there, and you can actually ask your questions. So it makes it nice and easy. I'm going to be presenting from there today, and it just means I can open up my questions live and answer them for you. So if you've got questions that you want me to cover for you, that's now the best place to pop them. You can pop those questions in anytime. It doesn't have to be on a live stream, and I will do my best to cover those when I next go live. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into the latest questions and let's see what we've got for today. All right, let me see here. Our first question is from Eddie Duff. Do you prefer Asana over Google Sites? Now, what do I need to do to answer this one? I think that just highlights it. There we go. Okay. So do I prefer Asana over Google Sites for SOPs, and why would I choose one over the other? Now, that's a great question. I think Eddie might have been a part of my latest bootcamp, which is called Systemize and Scale. And that's all about systemizing your business and building a standard operating procedures manual and library of all of your operating procedures and all of your business information. And when you do that, when you actually build out a library of your operating procedures and your checklists and your how-tos and everything that happens inside your business, it means that you can rapidly scale the business by delegating to your team. And so you need somewhere to put how you do things inside the business. You're going to be writing checklists of how we run payroll, how we run customer projects, how you want your team to answer the phone. All of those things can be documented. And then when they're documented, it means that when you hire someone new, all you need to do is send them straight over to that guide or that process library, and then they're ready to get started and start working productively. Now, in corporates and large organizations, quite often what that looks like is somebody just, searching through the binders of policies and procedures, right? But they're usually out of date, or they're kind of there more for compliance rather than for actually, being useful on a day-to-day basis. And so what we teach in Systemize and Scale is we teach you how to actually create a systems library that looks like this. So this is using Google Sites. And you can see here that we've got lots of different sections around onboarding, but also every different area of the business has their own set of systems and processes documented on how we do things. And, if I drill down into finance, you can see here there's how to process a chargeback for a customer, how to create a credit note, right down to that level. We've got everything nicely documented. And so in someone's first week, they're going to get the newbies guide. We're going to take them through all the things that they need to learn as they're going through their first week. And we've got training on each one of our individual apps as well. Here's our training on Asana. So the question is, should I use Google Sites, which is what I've just shown you, or should I use Asana for storing my systems and processes? And the answer is they're different. Google Sites is like your systems and processes library. That's the place where you're going to put everything your team need to know, and the checklists and the documentation for how to do things. And I call that a systems library because you really want your team to start referring to it when they have a problem or when they have a challenge. And so if they've got something that kind of like pops up and they think, oh, I wonder how I get that done, like maybe social media posting, or if you record videos online and you want to have somebody embed them into your blog after they've transcribed them, that's the kind of thing where you would say to someone, okay, here's the checklist on how you actually do it. and then you basically let them go and do it. You let them read the checklist, let them read the system or the process that you've documented, and then they go do it. So that system library, that's stored inside Google Sites, because Google Sites is the best place to store how to do things. Asana is very useful for when to do things, who is doing them, and are they done or not. So Asana is a task management platform, and it's a shared collaborative task management system, which means that you can invite all of your team and work with all of your team. So Asana is going to help you to know who's doing a particular task, who's responsible, how often it has to happen, because you've got things like repeating deadlines. So once you complete the task, it'll automatically create the repeated task when it needs to happen next week. And Asana is going to keep people accountable to actually getting things done. Now, one of the really clever things that you can do inside Asana is if you have a repeating task, well, you can actually recreate that each time, but you can link it into the system or the process that you have inside of Google Sites. So let me show you what that looks like. I've got my Google site here, and let's go and find something that might need to be done weekly. I'll probably go into my marketing area here, and I'll go to processes. Let me see, broadcast process. That's probably a good one to do weekly. Okay, so we've got some information here on how to do a broadcast inside Infusionsoft and what some of the parameters are on that broadcast. So I'm going to take the URL, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to copy the URL. And inside my Asana, when I set up a task, let's say, for example, and I'll see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Yes, I can. How do I create a new task here? I thought it was Control Q. Maybe it's not. All right, there we go. Okay, let me make that a bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to make a new task, and I'm going to say that this task is called Weekly Broadcast Email. Okay, wonderful. Now, I'm going to choose who I assign this to. I'm going to put the word test on there so I don't confuse anyone. I'm going to choose who I assign this to. And let's say, for example, this is assigned to Scott. And it's going to exist in the project Attract, which is our marketing team. We call them the Attract team. And from there, I'm going to paste the link to the process so Scott knows how to follow the process. And you can see here I've got a priority. I'm going to say that's medium priority, and I'm going to set a due date of Friday. And let's say I might make that repeat. I'm going to click the repeat button, and I'll say repeat every Friday, but also every Tuesday if we want to send 2 emails a week. There we go. So when I create that task, it's going to delegate that task. Let me go ahead and open that one again. It's created the task for Scott. You can see there it's in the Attract folder or the Attract project. He's got a link that he can open up at any time and find how to get the task done. And then it's going to repeat once it's created it. It's Friday, and it's going to repeat every Tuesday and Friday once it's been completed. So that's how those two systems work nicely together. Basically, Asana is how you get tasks done. Whether or not tasks are done by someone or not, you can track them there. And then from there, you link out to your Google site, and your Google site is the place where you store all of your systems and processes. I hope this has been useful. Let me know if you like that answer. And if you like this solution, let me know in the comments if that's something that you will make use of inside your business. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I'm going to mark that one as answered. Great. Actually, before that, I'm going to be 10 seconds while I run and grab a glass of water. I forgot to do that when I started my stream, and this is going to take a while. So let me go and get hydrated. 1 second, people. Must be a bit weird if you've just joined the stream. I just grabbed myself a glass of water. Thank you for joining. If you've just joined, if you've been here a while, welcome back. Okay. So moving on to our second question. And by the way, if you're on the live stream, you can drop a question straight into ask.peter.com and I will ask it for you. Can be anything business, tech related. I'm trying to focus this stream on Google Workspace questions, so I can keep some streams to techie questions and others will be purely business. But as much as possible, I'm gonna intertwine and answer as as many things as I can as broadly as possible. All right. So the next question is here. How do I full screen that? Let's go ahead and full screen it. Okay, have I done a breakdown on Copper versus Hiver, looking for any explanation that would indicate the similarities and differences, if it is best to use one versus the other, and whether both tools integrate well together along with Gmail contacts and, say, a Zapier integrated database of contacts? Okay, well, that's a really good question. Copper and Hiver fundamentally achieve different things. Copper is a relationship management tool, and Copper will connect to your Gmail and it will pull in all of your emails, and effectively it's what's known as a CRM or customer relationship manager. And that system will allow you to document all of the conversations and all of the relationship milestones that you have with a customer or a partner or somebody that you're working with. Now, Copper's really great because what it means is you can do things like create sales funnels with pipelines and sales targets, and you can use it for deal management. And so you actually move deals through different stages, and you can have fantastic reports generated based on the pipeline of business that you have, based on the activity of your salespeople. It's basically a full sales manager for your sales team. And Copper also does a couple of other things. There is some basic tasks and project features. There's some basic email management features as well. And Copper's really becoming, I guess, a hub for relationship-based businesses. And so if you've got a relationship with your customer in any way, whether that's how you manage partners and how you onboard partners and how you take them through a process of getting them into relationship with you, if it's customers going through a consultative sales process and you're taking them through different stages along the way and you want to make sure that process is nicely fine-tuned, if you're working with any kind of dollars with any of your partners or customers and you want to track how that's going and who's earning the most and which one of your consultants is having the most activity and touch points with your customers. If you want to do things like set up reminders for customers that you haven't been in touch with in a certain number of days or months and remind your team to reach out to them for account management or relationship management, Copper is wonderful for that. Now, Hiver is a little bit different. Hiver does one thing really, really well, and a few other things that it's building out its capability in as well. Hiver is a shared mailbox tool. And what Hiver does is creates a set of common shared labels that multiple staff can access right from within their Gmail. And so Hiver is really designed to help you deliver support to your customers right from within your mailbox. And if you are a business that has a high level of customer service or a high level of customer requests or a high level of orders, then Hiver might be a great tool for you. Because what Hiver will do is it will actually sit inside your inbox and allow you to have one email address like help@yourcompany.com or support@yourcompany.com or sales@yourcompany.com or orders@yourcompany.com, and have multiple people log into that mailbox and see the same set of folders. Now, that can be done at a basic level using something like delegated mailboxes inside of Google Workspace. That's nothing fancy in itself. But what Hiver also lets you do is have a full ticketing system built onto the back end of that shared label feature. Now, what's a ticketing system? Well, that's an IT industry term. But what we mean by that is it's a structured customer request system, in that you can have an email come in from a customer and then assign the responsibility to somebody on your team to take that request through into completion. You can make sure that you get reports on how quickly your team are responding, on whether or not they're getting good or bad customer service ratings from your team. You can also make sure that you keep tabs on how quickly an individual team member is responding to customers on a particular issue. And what Hiver basically lets you do is deliver customer support and deliver your customer relationships really, really well. So just to zoom back out again, copy you have on one side is really about documenting the relationship. And for some businesses, they'll also use it for managing deal flow or for communicating with the customers by sending out email broadcasts. Hiver is specifically designed to have a shared mailbox, which is shared with multiple team members and allows multiple team members to deliver customer support or customer communication rapidly. Now, the two work beautifully hand in hand, which is why we recommend both for many small businesses, because Copper is the place where you manage the relationship and you manage the dollar amounts. Hiver is the place where your delivery team actually deliver their support. And Hiver has added new features recently like live chat, which will actually allow you to communicate with your customers via chat as well. And so that's another way that you can reach to your customers and stay in good communication with them as you're delivering your support or your processes. So this question also asks, well, if they integrate well together, the short answer to that is yes. But also, do they integrate with Google Contacts or Zapier? And that is a good question. Now, anyone that you email out of your email system is automatically going to be saved into your Google Contacts. Any email that you send out of Gmail goes into a little folder in Contacts for every single person that you've ever emailed. Now, when you send a message from a shared mailbox, it's going to go into the contact database of that shared mailbox because that's basically the owner of that shared mailbox. Now, you can integrate that with Zapier if you wish, and you can pull contacts in or out of there and synchronize them to different platforms. You can also connect those to Copper as well, but that process is actually automated. Anyone that you've ever emailed inside your Gmail, but also inside the shared mailbox, if you have a shared mailbox set up, is automatically going to be sucked into Copper because Copper will automatically collect all of the data from inside your Gmail and use it to automatically populate your CRM system. Now, that's one of the reasons that Copper is a fantastic system and really great for small business owners is we know that you're busy all the time. We know that your team are busy serving customers all the time. You probably don't want to get stuck doing manual data entry. And Copper really shines there because it's got AI-based tools that will take someone's email address and automatically find their company, fill out their contact information, find their email, and automatically look up their LinkedIn profile and link all of those things into their Copper profile, which is absolutely amazing. And so these two tools used together, which we obviously use both of them internally inside our business as well, mean that you've got an absolute powerhouse in managing your relationships and then delivering great support or great service to your customers. So they act a little bit differently, but they also work really nicely in harmony. And if you want to automate some of those flows, so you've got things like kind of talking to each other nicely, then you can do that as well. And of course, if you're a member of Concierge, well, you get unlimited zaps. And so check out our Zap plan. It's the growth plan that allows you to get unlimited zaps from our team. So if you want to set up some zaps to automate different systems and get things talking to each other, you might want to consider Concierge. And of course, if you do, there's a link right down below this video to check that out. Great question. Really glad you got that one. I'm going to mark that one as answered. And let's go ahead and see if anyone said hi on the live. Hey, Sean, great to have you here. Glad that you came along to get that one answered. All right, I've also got Ralph. G'day, Ralph. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining. Sean, I know you're in the US. I'm pretty sure you're in the US from memory. Ralph, would love to know where you're dialed in from. Thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to ask a question live, I'm doing live questions on ask.peter.tv. So just drop that right in. And weirdly, it doesn't show me when they've been asked. Oh, there we go. Sean, all right, I've got one for you. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that one now. Let's open this bad boy up. Atlanta. All right. Thanks for joining, Sean. So Sean asks, for Google Groups, is it better for an organization to delineate their groups based on employment status or by department or both? So, for example, full-time employees at agency, part-timers at agency versus policy team at agency or finance at agency. Good question. The beauty of groups is you could actually do both of those if you wanted to. And if you think about a large organization, like an organization with hundreds or thousands of employees, they would probably have multiple overlapping groups with different groups of staff. So you might have location-based groups. So, there might be like an all Australia group or an all New Zealand group or an all North America group. Or you may then have all function. You might have function groups. So that might be like all finance, or marketing. As you've said, policy team might have their own group. And there's no limit to the number of groups that you can create inside Google Workspace. It doesn't cost you for a mailbox to create a group, so you can create as many as you like. The only stipulation is that they have to have unique names. Now, if you are in a small business, then I would consider, rather than full-time, part-time, yes, those are factually correct. But what might be, let's say, a little bit more fun and conducive to a positive and exciting culture in your business is to have something like all team, or I don't know if I'd even say temporary team, maybe like the sometimes team. It's getting weirder. I don't know where I'm going with that, but trying to make them not as robotic as possible. People like to be defined not just by their roles, but by their place that they feel to be in the business. And so that's why we've come up with different names for our teams. Like, rather than calling our team the marketing team, we call them the attract team. Rather than having an HR team, we have an empower team, because their job is to empower our people. And so have a think about that when you're creating groups and when you're naming the different areas of your business. That would be my recommendation. But you can go nuts on as many groups as you like. Remember, though, not to go too crazy with that many groups, because as much as possible, you want to keep it simple so your staff can remember what groups are actually usable and what groups are available and used inside the business. So if you can keep it to less, simple is always better, because your team are therefore more likely to make use of it. Cool. All right. Glad that was useful. Hey, g'day, Graham. Great to have you here. Hey, Beckett's here. G'day, Andrew. Good to see you, mate. Cool. So for those who've just joined the stream, I'm answering questions at ask.peter.tv. You can drop them into the live chat if you like. Otherwise, I'm answering questions from my queue. All right, let's go. I'm sorting my popular. The idea here is, because I get so many comments on YouTube every day, if all of our questions go into ask.peter.tv, there's a bit of a democratic process where you can give a thumbs up to questions that you want to see answered, and then the most popular questions are going to filter to the top, and I'm going to get the top questions answered each time that I go live. Okay, so we've got another question here from Caleb. Would like to get your thoughts on not being able to add external users to a group chat and being forced to use a space for external users? Yeah, okay. It's rant time. So when you're creating spaces inside Google Chat, and a space is basically what it was called a room in the past, but effectively it's like a group chat now, but it's called spaces. You can add external users. Basically, you can create a space and you can have people from your company, but you can also have people from outside your company as well. And one of the advantages of spaces, and I'm going to just go and jump into my my marketing space here. What's going on here? Hold on, let me open it again. All right. So one of the advantages of having spaces is that you can create threads. And Google's implementation of this is not amazing, to be completely honest. We've got here, and let me maybe turn on day mode. No, that hasn't helped. That's all right. So you can see here that I've got a thread that I've started. We put a thread title up the top, and then we put all of our text underneath. I'll go to a busier thread here, so we've got a little bit more. Someone has just dropped in. Someone's just dropped in an iPad competition. This one's called scheduling tool. So you can basically organize your chat via threads when you're working with a space. That's basically what it looks like. But when you have a group chat, let me open up a group chat. You can just have a bunch of people in like one thread, and there's no individual threads. There's just a bunch of people in one thread. Now, what Caleb is referring to here in his question is he's saying, hey, I can't create a group chat like this with people outside my company. And he's right, you can't. And you used to be able to. When Google previously had Google Hangouts, and then they have transitioned into Google Chat, somehow that feature has been dropped off. For some reason, there's a weird restriction where you can't add external people. But weirdly, if it's initiated from a Gmail account, they can actually add multiple people from multiple domains to their chat. So what's going on here, Google? Well, number one, this is probably the reality of Google's development, is based on sometimes technical limitations. And so when they're trying to merge different systems together and they have legacy technology that they've built, like Google Hangouts, and they're trying to merge that into a newer version of something that they've built when they've completely done a rewrite, like Google Chat, they sometimes run into some of their own technical roadblocks. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail on that because that's basically a problem for developers to try and work out. But effectively, sometimes Google are going to run into the kind of things that just stop them from implementing something. Now, if you've been around Google Workspace for long enough, you would remember that we used to use Google Hangouts for video calls. And you could open up Google Hangouts, you could click a button and actually call someone with a Google Hangout, and it would ring on their device, and then you could jump into a meeting with them. And that was really useful. But when Google switched from Google Hangouts to Google Meet, which was completely rewritten from scratch, that calling feature didn't appear until only a couple of months ago. It was basically not even there for years. And so Google are basically from time to time rewriting their tools from scratch, and they don't always get all of the old features because maybe it was old infrastructure, or it was, maybe they believe that people don't use it that much, or they don't need it that much, or maybe there's sometimes a technical limitation in them actually getting it done. So sometimes you're going to have Google make a change and it's going to seem dumb, it's going to seem counterintuitive, they're going to remove a feature that you liked in the past, and we just kind of get stuck with it. That's the first reason. There is another reason, though. I'm going to give you the second reason that this happens. The second reason that this happens sometimes is something will be implemented in Gmail or a consumer Google account, but not inside a workspace account or what was called G Suite in the past. And you would have seen things like the Google Assistant and Nest Home Automation having problems working with G Suite or Google Workspace accounts. I'm based in Australia and I still can't get my calendar to work on the Google Assistant. It still won't read back my work calendar, but it works just fine for Gmail accounts. Now, why would Google do that? Well, sometimes when Google is implementing a feature in their massive ecosystem of tools, when they create it for a business account, it actually falls under something called the SLA, or Service Level Agreement. And inside the Service Level Agreement, there is a guarantee on uptime. And there also is a guarantee on things like privacy controls, on data protection, and in some areas of the world, like the European Union, there are very stringent privacy controls. Now, if Google's built a service for consumers, they can be a little bit more lax in how it's implemented, because basically, if it's a free service like Gmail, there's no promise to what the uptime is going to be. There's no compensation if there's any time that the service is down or unavailable. And there's no privacy laws. Well, there are consumer privacy laws, but if you're a business, then you want to be using the business service. And so for your own compliance in a business, you wouldn't be using a personal Gmail account, right? And so you don't have to worry about the compliance on a Gmail account. But in a business account, you need things like audit reporting. You need things like uptime reporting. Google needs to build a status dashboard for every feature. Google needs to make sure each feature is available. Otherwise, their big customers will request refunds for any downtime. And so that's why Google will at times be cautious what they actually implement from the consumer world into the business version, even though Gmail looks exactly the same. And it is exactly the same between Gmail and Google Workspace. Unfortunately, some features like the Assistant, some other features like getting my calendar to work, Google Nest, some of the other things that people love, like going to Google Play and being able to share movies that you've bought with your family. Can't do it in Google Workspace. Works fine in Gmail. Subscribing to Google One. Can't do it in Google Workspace. Works fine in Gmail. These are just the kind of things that you have to, unfortunately, put up with if you're working in the different ecosystems. So hopefully that's been a little bit of an explainer. It's a very wide-ranging explanation for why that is the case. But that should give you an idea why sometimes you just won't have a feature inside Workspace. You just got to hope and pray that Google will implement it. There are, of course, the options to go to Google's suggestions forum, add that in as a suggestion for them to fix it. Chances are they're already working on it if it's something that just seems completely dumb, because hundreds or thousands of customers are probably already asking for it. But if you really want to put in your individual vote, you can go to Google's forums and add your vote for them to implement that as well. Great question. All right. Cool. Let me get a little drink here. G'day, Ali. Thanks for joining. Welcome from Denver. Okay. Let's go to our next one. I'm going to check for any recent questions. All right. Okay, we have a question from Anonymous. Can I get my old Gmail emails on a new Workspace mail? That is a great question, and I'm so glad you asked. Yes, you can. There are a number of ways to migrate your old emails over to Google Workspace, as long as you still have access to your old Gmail account. When you sign up for Google Workspace, there's actually a suite of tools inside the administrator panel, which gives you the option to migrate mail. And it can basically like pull all of those emails out of that Gmail and into the individual mailboxes inside your Google Workspace account. Now, do I recommend you go and use those tools yourself? No, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not good use of your time as a business owner. It's probably best to delegate that to somebody else, because if you're serious about your business, it's probably not worthwhile spending your weekend or spending a couple of hours messing around with migrating email just in case something goes wrong, because things can pretty easily go wrong. You can end up with emails in the wrong place, and then it takes hours or even tens of hours to sort that out and clean it up. So the worst case scenario is that you may lose email amongst the process. And so if you value the history of all your information from your customers over the many, many years that I'm assuming you've been in business, then you probably don't want to leave that up to an accident to potentially lose any of that data. Now, secondly, the internal tools inside of Google Workspace sometimes have errors. We actually choose to use third-party tools, and those third-party tools we choose to use for migrating mail because they have better error reporting, and they let us know guaranteed 100% of the data has come across. And there's no downtime either when we choose the particular methodology to move those emails across. And so my recommendation would be, in all cases, have a chat to our team, jump on one of the links down below this video and chat about a migration service. It's very, very affordable. We've made it affordable for small business owners, and especially if you're a sole operator, we have special discounted pricing as well. So jump on a call with our team, and they'll be happy to walk you through that, getting some support. Our whole business is built around doing migrations for Google Workspace. Well, it was. In the old days, that's what we were doing for kind of the last decade. And we've since moved to helping systemize businesses with a suite of technology tools. But our real sweet spot, and we've helped literally thousands of businesses, is really migrating data. And so if you need assistance with that, jump on a link down below this video, have a chat to itGenius, and we'll be very, very glad to help you out with that. All right, great question. Let's move on to our next one. Opening Excel and Word via Google Drive only opens in read-only. How can I change this so I can edit these documents on iOS devices? Thanks very much. Now, that's a very interesting question, because Word and Excel have actually been built into Google Drive now. And for the backstory on that, Microsoft, when they created the newer versions of their documents, they used an XML format to actually save them. And that was an open source piece of software, and they were basically forced by lawsuit a very long time ago to create their format to be open and basically, republish how to access and work with those documents. Now, a number of providers created third-party tools to edit Word and Excel documents right out of the box, and Google purchased one of those. It was called, I think, Quick Office on the iPad, and they actually built that technology right into Google Drive on the web. And what that means is you can now edit and work with a Microsoft document or a Microsoft presentation or a Microsoft spreadsheet right inside of Google Drive, which is pretty darn cool, and it's available for free as well. Now, there aren't really many restrictions to what you can do with those documents. They are pretty basic, and they don't allow you to do things like live editing with colleagues that are specifically designed for Google Documents. But if you do want to work with one of them, you can open it in Google Drive just like you would with any other document. Now, this questioner says that they are read-only. And what that says to me is it's possible that the documents have been shared with you by someone else, and they've actually only been shared on a read-only basis. And what that tells me is if you don't have access to edit them, maybe you're not the owner of the document. So there's a couple of ways that you can manage that. You can right-click on the document and you can create a copy. And creating a copy is going to give you full editing rights to do what you like with them. If you're on an iOS device or a desktop, it shouldn't really matter what access you have to the document. You can still work on and manage and edit that document as long as you have the correct permission. So if you have a file in your Google Drive right now and you don't have permission to access it, well, it's quite possible it's shared in read-only. Making a copy is one workaround, or you can always ask the owner of that document to share edit access with you, or maybe it's sitting in a folder that you want to check and get edit access from as well. You can also do that. Hope that was helpful. All right. Let's jump into the next one here. What have we got? Okay, I would like to convert a user email to a group. How would I do this for a current office email that has existing emails and we would like to keep, and be able to have the users in the shared email be able to look up the current archived emails? Well, that's a great question. If you're looking to create a group, I'm a bit curious what they actually mean by group, because there's a couple of different things here. You're asking in the second half of the question to allow people to access a shared email and to be able to look up current archived emails. And so if you want people to be able to look up archived emails and access a shared email repository of all of those emails, well, then you need to actually retain that bucket of emails somewhere. And so what that's probably going to look like is you continuing to have all of your emails in one place. And I think that might make sense for me to kind of draw this out. So let me open up my Jamboard here. Let's go to my presentation screen. All right, let's open this up. And I've run out of slides. So let me open up a new, open up a new slide. Okay, cool. So this person has one bucket of email. And let's say maybe it's called sales at their company. And if you've got a whole bunch of emails, you've got a whole bunch of email blobs kind of sitting in there right now. And let's say you've got your other users in the company. So you've got John and you've got Bob. And maybe right now, John and Bob are accessing that mailbox because they know the password. That's what most people do. They just share the password to that sales mailbox, and they will, just all access the sales mailbox. Now, what the questioner here is actually asking is, okay, I want to have these existing emails kept. All right, that's fair enough. And I want to be able to have the users of the shared email look up the current archived emails. Well, that's pretty straightforward. To do that, all you really need to do is you need to what's called delegate. You delegate this account back up to John and back up to Bob. And what delegation means is that you can access this account without having to know the password. And you can look up other emails. If you search for delegate on the channel, it'll show you other videos with how to delegate a mailbox. Basically, you need to log into the sales mailbox and go to your settings and then share access to the sales mailbox back to John and back to Bob. And that's going to allow you to see those emails that exist within the sales mailbox from John and from Bob. But it is going to open up in a new tab. Now, let me show you what that looks like on my desktop. I'll go ahead and open up my mail here. And I'll show you what it looks like to access a delegated mailbox, because delegated mailboxes are very useful when you need to access another mailbox inside your company, but you don't want to have to share the password. So I click on my picture here in the top right-hand corner, and any mailboxes that have been delegated to me actually show up here as a delegated mailbox. So if I want to open up itGenius support, that would open up our support mailbox. If I want to open up the archive is going to show me the archive of all of the other users inside our company who are previous employees and have left our company. So we migrate all their mail into one big archive mailbox, and that lives there. And you can see here the inbox is going to have a whole bunch of stuff. And you can see in the archive down on the left-hand side here, I've got all of the labels, and all of those labels have all of the mailboxes for all of those people. It's looking a bit long there. It's not opening for some reason. Okay. So that shows you what a delegated mailbox looks like and how you want to access it. However, this person actually gave us a little bit of an interesting question, right? There was something interesting here, and I want to make sure I just cover that. This person said that I want to convert a user email to a group. Well, technically what we're looking at here, this sales mailbox is actually a user. And they're saying that they want to delegate it or change it to a group. Okay, so if we change it to a group, how is that going to change the situation? All right, well, let's grab this and let's try changing the situation, and let's turn that sales mailbox into a group. Now, when we have a group, things operate a little bit differently to when we just have a user mailbox. So I'm going to create the sales group. Okay, and this is going to be the sales group. Now, when an email comes in to the sales mailbox where it's currently set up, the email lives inside that sales mailbox. So a new email comes in and it lives inside the sales mailbox. And when you do a shared mailbox, that is also going to cost you the cost of a mailbox. But when we do a group up here, when an email comes into the group, it doesn't actually stay in that group. It comes down and a copy gets placed in John's mailbox, if he's a member of the group, obviously, and a copy gets placed in Bob's mailbox. And there's no cost for a group because it's not a mailbox in itself. It's not holding any mail. Now, I often say on the channel, the only time you have to pay is when you have a bucket of email. So that's a bucket of email, that's a bucket of email, and sales is also a bucket of email. But the sales group is not a bucket of email because those emails you saw with the yellow lines will actually go and send a copy through to the individual people. So, okay, we're converting a user email to a group. If that is the case, so we're converting a user email to a group, well, how would you then keep the existing emails in each person's mailbox? Great question. How would we do that? Well, whoops, I hit the wrong button there. Let me bring that back. So how would we do that? Well, what we would do is we could take everything that's in this mailbox. Let me go to a different color. I'm running out of colors here. All right, I'll go for blue. All right. So we could take, if we wanted to, go through this process, we convert sales up into a group. So we're going to get rid of that mailbox. But what about all these little blue emails that are in here? Well, we could migrate them into Bob's mailbox and into John's mailbox. So all the history would be, we'd have to do this manually and we'd have to run multiple migrations, but we could move all that history into John's mailbox and into Bob's mailbox if we wanted to. And then any future emails, we drew those in yellow. The new emails are just going to keep arriving. New emails coming in are going to keep arriving. There we go. What a great question. I'm so glad I got to answer that one. That was a nice one. To the person who asked that question, thank you. It's a nice, tricky one. Now, that's the kind of thing that our support team manage all the time and our sales team manage all the time. So if you have a situation like this where you have something tricky or you're looking to change something and you have a feeling, oh, maybe this is going to require a migration, or maybe this is going to require, moving around some data in a kind of special way, and it's maybe going to get a little bit complex, then have a chat to our team because we've seen it all. We've seen it all. We've seen all these kinds of different scenarios. And we've chopped and changed a million different Workspace accounts. Sometimes there's a publicly listed company and they've been sold and they're in liquidation and they need to change brand and they need to retain some mailboxes here and some data needs to be purged and other data needs to be migrated. And we've done that for thousands of accounts. And then sometimes there's a small business owner and they've got like 10 Gmail accounts for all their different businesses, or they've got 10 different domains and 10 different Workspace accounts and their stuff is just everywhere and they're looking to do a big consolidation. We had a mid-market customer and they had an e-commerce store with a bunch of different brands and they were selling off and individualizing their different brands. And so they wanted to take one big account and actually split it into multiple smaller accounts. Now, all of this can be done without any downtime, without any hassle, and basically just letting our technical virtual assistance team do it all for you. So if you're interested in any of those services, jump at the link down below. You can jump straight onto Concierge. A paid plan will include migration services. But if you want to have a chat to our consultation team before you get started, then just book in for a consultation. If you qualify for that, it's a free call, and the link to that is right down below. All right, great question. Love it. Okay. Here we go. Let me open up my next question. Hello, Sergio from Philadelphia. Welcome. Great to have you here. All right. So D. Miller asks, I have a large family that weirdly enough has regular meetings and plans family events. Will workspaces help with multiple logins and help with calibration? Okay, I'm going to come back to that one because I'm going to go find it on YouTube. I know that was a detailed one. I'll come back to that. Okay. Regarding Google Drive on a local server, please, is there a problem if many people are working on the same file? Thanks. Great question. Okay, so if you're choosing to use Google Drive on a local server, and I assume trying to synchronize that online, is there a problem if multiple people are working on the same file? Great question. So what this person is basically describing is, I'm assuming in their office in some way, they have a server sitting here, right? And we'll just call that server. And I assume then that they have a bunch of computers that are connecting to that. And I'm going to call them PC just for ease of use. And then up here in the cloud, well, actually, that was a pretty bad cloud, but anyway, we have Google Drive. Now, if you like, you can basically set up a link like this, where your server is going to be synchronizing your files up to Google Drive. Now, the question that I have before I kind of answer this is, what kind of server is that? Because there's different kinds of servers. You might actually have like an actual, a Windows or a Mac computer. That might be your server. It might be what's called a NAS drive, like a network attached storage drive, which will have their own synchronization agent. Or you may have some kind of enterprise server. It might still be Windows, actually. Might be like Windows Server Edition of some sort, which is also going to operate differently. Now, if you're using a Windows or a Mac computer, that should be pretty fine, because you can just use the consumer version of Google Drive, and the consumer version of Google Drive is just going to synchronize to the cloud without any real trouble. If you're using a NAS drive, that should be fine, because most NAS drives that have a synchronization agent between Google Drive and the cloud are going to be fine. They're not going to really worry, what file that you're working on. If you have an enterprise server, though, I've got a bit of a question mark there. I haven't done this in a long time, and I'm not sure if Google Drive will still install on a server, because I remember in the past there were problems installing Google Drive onto a server because the consumer version or the desktop version of Google Drive was not suitable to be installed on a server operating system. So you couldn't do that natively with Google. And what you had to do in those instances is actually synchronize it using a third-party synchronization software. Now, I will admit it's been about a year since or probably 2 years since I've personally gone anywhere near that myself. Our technical team will certainly be able to answer what is the current best practice solution for you, because our business, itGenius, but also On-Site Helper, which helps larger businesses with server infrastructure and more traditional IT, get all of this done. They'll be very happy to help you find the correct solution if that's what you're looking for. But this gives you a little bit of a rundown of the different ways that you can connect between a server and online with Google Drive. But we haven't completely answered the question yet. The question is, if multiple people are working on the same file, what is going to happen? Well, that's a very interesting question, because if multiple people are working on the same file, well, it actually needs to be a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation, or it needs to be a PDF, which I don't think people can collaborate on at the same time. I mean, multiple people could have it open, but they're going to be saving over each other when they save it back to the server drive. Who else? It could be like an MP3, right? Could be a video file. So they're all the kind of file types that might live on a server. And it brings me back to, a decade or so ago working with corporate servers where, someone would have the file open and someone would be trying to access the file, and they'd have to like yell across the office, "Hey, get out of the file. I need to access the file." And if two people worked on it at the same time, someone might save over somebody else's work. Somebody may, make an update to the file, and then they have to save it, but they can't. So they save as, and all of a sudden you've got a new version of the file. There is a solution for this, and that solution was released over a decade ago now. Do you know what the solution is? The solution is to use Google Docs. And so let's look at what it looks like when we're using Google Docs. Okay, so we have a Google Doc. Let's make that a little bit bigger here. Okay, let's say we have a Google Doc. They're blue, aren't they? A Google Sheet, which is an S, or a Google Slide, which is actually also an S, but that's okay. Now, if you're using one of those file formats, oops, I've got my Google going off in the background. If you're using one of those formats, they don't actually live on your server. They only ever live online, even if you can see them locally on your computer. And let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to open up my Chrome box here. I'm going to open up my files, and I'm going to open up my Google Drive. And you can see I've got all these documents here, right? Now, it looks like they live on my local computer, but they actually only ever live online, or they're only ever accessed via Google Chrome. And so when I open up, let's open up something that is not going to expose any customer information. You can see here, it's automatically going to open in Google Chrome, and it's opened up to the URL of Google Chrome. Now, even if I was offline, then this file would open on my local computer, yes, but as soon as I connect it to the internet again, it's actually going to synchronize straight back up to the internet. So the point that I'm making here is these files here don't actually ever really live on your server. The only thing that lives on your server, if you have what appears to be a Google Drive file or a Google Sheet or a Google Slide presentation, they are only ever a link or a shortcut to the cloud. And when you open them online, it actually just opens straight up in your Chrome browser. And so each one of those files, even though it looks like it might be sitting down on your PC, accessible via the server drive, and it may look like it's being synchronized into the server, it actually only ever lives online. So there you go. That's how file sharing works. Whether you've got a NAS or a hybrid local infrastructure and online infrastructure environment, that's how Google document formats work. And that's the best way to collaborate with multiple people. If you're trying to work on a PDF or a Microsoft document, putting aside for a moment that you can edit Microsoft documents online in the Chrome browser for now. But if you're trying to work on a local file, on a local server with multiple people, short story is it's going to be a mess. Now, there's solutions like Dropbox, which will notify you when someone else is using or working in the file. There's solutions like, Google Drive is now, notifying you if you're trying to access the same file at the same time as well. But really, it's just a bit of a mess. My strong recommendation is that you just go Google and use Google Documents for every single file that you can. All of your old templates, all of the old ways of doing things inside your business, you ditch them and go all in on Google, because trust me, it's just going to be easier. And then you open up all of the integrations with the rest of the Google ecosystem, and your life and your business life especially are going to run a whole lot better. Not to speak to all of the extra features like the AI assistance in Google Sheets for picking the right graph. Inside Google Documents, you've got a revision of every single keystroke and every single change that the document has gone through since its inception. Google Slides can pull in live data and link slides between multiple presentations and update them live, and present live into a Google Meet and progress your slides inside the Meet. All those cool features are available only if you're using Google document formats. So make sure you do. All right. Cool. Thanks for joining the live, Sergio. Great to have you here. Cool. What should the top 2 to 3 Google products? All right. Hold on. Let me try that again from the start. Okay. So I'll bring that up on the in the actual stream. Okay. So I'm trying to help my employer better organize their business. There is little time to think ahead amidst the day-to-day. What should be the top 2 to 3 Google products to focus on? Good question. I would say, for starters, if you're new to the Google world, come along to one of our Workspace Basics bootcamps. The Workspace Basics bootcamp is basically a place to learn everything you need to know about the basics of administration inside your Google account and the basics of the day-to-day amongst your Google account. So we teach you how to set up your Google Drive permissions properly, how to share them with groups of staff rather than individual staff. We teach you how to set up the smartest filters inside your Gmail so you can filter out some of your unwanted email. We teach you a couple of basics on things like security, two-factor authentication for your team, making sure that everything is connected correctly for each one of your team members, and how to set up the apps on your mobile phone so the right apps are talking to each other. So if you can't make it along to a boot camp or there isn't one scheduled in the next month or two and you'd like to learn what you can do, well, you can have a look through, I would say probably Google Drive. If you look through the videos on our channel, especially a video called Getting Your Permissions Right in Google Drive, that's probably going to be the most important place to start because inside our business, most of our time is spent helping to consult to business owners on getting the basic foundational structures of organization set up. And what that looks like a lot of the time is actually organizing Google Drive, setting up some basic folder structures, adding those folders and sharing them to the right people so they're not going to the wrong people, and then educating the team on how to access those folders and putting all the data into the new folder structure. That's usually the first place that we start. Next is email productivity. And so I recommend you check out my inbox domination course. That actually is inside our Genius Academy, which you can access for free as long as you're a concierge member. So you just need to be on our concierge free plan. It's called the Transfer In offer. If you click on the link down below this video, look to transfer your billing into itGenius. That basically makes you a free concierge customer, and then you can access Genius Academy. And inside Genius Academy, we've got a pretty epic course which helps you to dominate and manage your inbox every day. That would be something that I would recommend teaching to the other staff on your team or in your business if you're a business owner. And that will help you to get a hell of a lot more productive on email every day, and hopefully maybe even give you enough time back that you can spend more time working on the business and on other initiatives in systemization and organization. So that's really important. What else would I implement? I think if I was a fresh business getting started with Google Workspace, I would want to make sure that Google Chat is working properly. And so Google Chat is the place where you can set up multiple rooms or spaces, they're now called. And in those spaces, you can set up different areas for different teams to chat and collaborate. And if you have a look at my Google Chat here, you'll see I've got spaces for all different areas of the business. And so, I've got my attract team, I've got my exec team, I've even got different businesses here like On-Site Helper, which is our sister company. Let me go ahead and zoom in here for you guys so you can actually see. And I've got all my, direct messages, obviously. But basically, each area of the business, we've got a leaders group, we've got a water cooler, just for the leaders. You can see here that we've got different rooms or spaces now for every different area of the business. And so that's really going to be your communication hub, especially if you've got a geographically distributed team. Very, very useful to use those and have them available for everyone inside the business to get access to rapid communication with each other. Now, chat comes with some caveats. You also want to have, like a good task management system. So not all of your conversations are happening in chat because it can be an interruption station. You also want to have the rest of the Google ecosystem configured. And my general rule is go all in on Google. If right now you're using Microsoft document formats or you're still using Keynote on your Mac, switch to using Google Slides. If right now you're using Word and Excel, switch to using Google Docs and Google Sheets. Because once you start using the whole ecosystem together, everything starts to run really nicely. We find many businesses have subscription overwhelm and probably a little bit of bright shiny object syndrome where, they're using Zoom for all their meetings when they could be using Google Meet, which is nicely integrated with Calendar and Chat. They're using Slack for their communication when they could be using Google Chat, which is deeply integrated with the rest of the Google ecosystem. Slack can't do things that Google can do. Like, if someone is on a holiday or they've got their out of office set, Google Chat will automatically let me know that that person's on holiday when I go to send them a message. Other external tools that are not integrated into the rest of the Google Workspace ecosystem just can't compete with those levels of integration. And you're probably doubling up on cost if you're using third-party external tools as well. So my strong recommendation is to go all in on Google. It all works nicely together. And it also means that you keep your costs down as you scale up your business as well. Great question. Thanks for asking that. Okay. Melanie asks, do Google have spreadsheets? Yes, they absolutely do. You can go to sheet.new. That will actually open up a brand new sheet for you. Yeah, you'll need to use a Gmail account or a Google Workspace account to sign in. Yeah, head along to that URL and that will take you straight to Google Sheets. And let me tell you, they are pretty damn powerful. Google Sheets have AI built in and a bunch of other features. So go check them out. Let us know what you think. All right, I'm going to go and find Dee Miller's question on my channel now. Excuse me while I dig through the channel comments. I think I'm just going to search for family. Not many people ask about family in the comments, so that should find it. So I get a lot of comments on the channel here. So I'm endeavoring to answer as many as possible. Here we go. I found it. Okay, great. I'm endeavoring to answer as many as possible. I'm going to let him know there's a message. Answering now. So what I've asked is if you put your questions into ask.peter.tv, then I will be able to have them triaged and I'll get to the actual questions, because plenty of people just leave comments and say, hey, thanks for the video, blah, blah, blah. And that's always lovely. I like those. But if you have an actual question you'd like me to answer, just make sure you drop it into ask.peter.tv. And you can do that right now if you're on the stream, if you like. And I'll endeavor to answer those, but it's also a democratic process. You can upvote for the questions you want to have answered, and then I'll be answering as many of those as possible. And I'm going to try and do more of these streams as well. I'm spending more and more of my time creating content, so I'm going to do even more of these streams to answer as many questions as possible, because I'm really enjoying it, actually. And the more I answer, the more people ask. So it seems to be working well. Okay, so D. Miller asks, I have a large family that has regular meetings and plans for family events. In addition to our Facebook group, which sounds interesting, I created a Google account for the family to develop forms, share and collect photos, and build a Google Sites website. Love it. I do recommend having a Google Workspace account for your family, so you can use it for things like family emails, storing your Google Photos, storing your family files in Google Drive and whatnot. Okay, now we're doing more. I want other family members to help collaborate with the site, creating forms and other tasks. Will the cheapest version of Workspace work for us? I know that sharing the login credentials for a free account can be a nightmare. Yes, definitely a bad idea because you miss out on two-factor. And I want to work on tasks in different areas from different areas of the country. Will a Workspace account with multiple logins help with collaboration? Will each collaborator have to have an account if they already have an existing account? Thanks for your help. Great question. There's a few different ways to approach this, and I really like that this question has been asked. Fundamentally, this is a question about identity, and this can apply to businesses as well who are maybe employing contractors who are outside the business. Now, when you have a Google Workspace account, every person that you name inside the account who has a mailbox is going to have to consume a license. So every person who has a mailbox is going to use a license, and that means they get Google Drive, they get Google Chat, and they get access to all the other features as well inside the Workspace account. And so from there, we have the challenge or the issue of, okay, should I pay for each one of those accounts? Should I pay for each one of those humans? And that's basically a personal choice whether or not you want to dish out for them, and you've got to make a cost-benefit decision on that, whether or not it's going to work for you. There are some ways around it, though. You can invite someone to most resources within a Google account with a Gmail account. So if they're actually external, you could invite them with a Gmail account. Now, I'm not sure if you can add a Gmail collaborator to a Google site, but I'm 99% sure you should be able to, because the new version of Google Sites is actually just a Google document file. When you create a site inside your Google Drive, it actually just lives right inside the Google Drive. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to open up my Google Drive here, and I can create a new file. I have to click the More button, but you can see here I can create a Google site. And what a Google site is going to allow me to do is create an intranet or a systems and processes library or some other kind of online library of documents and pages, and I can embed content in there. Now, where I go to share it with others, I think it might be asking me to set a site name first. Let me try that. Here we go. Cool. When I go to share that with others, I should be able to share that with email accounts. So let me see if I can share that with my Gmail account. There we go. I'm going to allow Peter to be an editor and share that out to my Gmail account. It's going to give me a warning and say this person's outside my organization, but I can still share it with them. So, one potential solution to this would be to have a master G Suite account, which just has one license, and then you have multiple individual Gmail accounts that you actually share things with. Now, I can actually do it one step better if I want. Let's say, for example, I want to share it with a number of family members, and I know who those family members are, right? I know exactly who the family members are, and so from there, now let's find the right email address. Let's drop that in there. Cool. So let's say I know who the family members are, and I want to share a resource with a group of users, and it's always going to be the same group of users. Well, what would we use for that? We would actually use our groups. So let's go into our admin panel, admin.google.com, and we go to groups, and we can create a group, and you can actually add Gmail accounts to groups. Now, let me add the test group here, group. All right, let's go next. I can tick this little button down the bottom of groups and allow members outside my organization. So the trick there would be for this person who's asked the question is you could actually put all of your family members, or if you're in a business, your contractors in that example, into a group and call it contractors or call it family if you wanted to, and have each one of those Gmail accounts, which are free, editing resources or shared resources that are inside the business. Now, what might be the limitations of that? Well, if you've got contractors, sometimes they've got weird names on their Gmail account, so you don't know who's who on the email address. And so that can make things a little bit harder. Also, inside your Google account, you might like the fact that you can reset somebody's password if they lose access to it. That would be an advantage of maintaining one workspace account where you control everything, because you can actually control all of the accounts. If someone creates a file inside their Google account, if you have control of it with Google Workspace, you can reset their password and you effectively then own all of their files that they create. Whereas if someone's creating files with a Gmail account, even if they're placing it into your Google Drive, in like a shared folder, or they're just sharing it with you, they're still the owner of that file, so they can do what they like with it. The only way around that, of course, is to use something like shared drives, where you have people put something into a folder inside shared drives, and then you become the owner of that file. So part of this question that was asked here is, would it work for us? Where was the question? Okay, I want to, develop forms, share and collect photos, and build a website. And part of the question was, would the cheapest version of Google Workspace work for us? And that's a really good question. You're going to miss out on two key features if you go for the cheapest version of Google Workspace, which is the business, I think it's called Starter. You're going to miss out on being able to record Google Meets. And that might be something that you actually use inside the family, funnily enough. When COVID was happening and everyone was on lockdown, I did a lot of virtual games nights with my friends. And those virtual games nights we did on Google Meet. And I actually recorded every one of those because I wanted to record the times that I had with my friends, just in case I want to go back in 5 years or 10 years' time. And, I guess enjoy the nostalgia of us playing board games online during COVID, during a pretty crazy time. And so all of those conversations that we were having are all recorded in those Google Meets. And so if you've got a family that are dispersed across the country, you might want to record the times that you're hanging out online if you're doing online hangouts using Google Meet. Secondly, I'm 99% sure that you miss out on the shared drives feature. Actually, I'm 100% sure. You miss out on this shared drives feature, which is an absolute killer feature of Google Workspace if you're only on the basic plan. You need to be on the standard plan, not the starter plan, to get access to shared drives. Now, if you're curious what you might use something like shared drives for, shared drives is very useful to have people collaborate and contribute to a folder, but not actually be able to delete any of the files in there. Very, very important. And so let's see if I open up my attract folder here, going to right click and have a look at the members and how I've structured the permissions. inside the permissions here, you'll see that some groups of people are contributors. They're only allowed to contribute, which means they can add and edit files, but they're actually not allowed to delete files, which means that they can put files in, but they're not allowed to take files out. And that is just such an important feature, especially if you're working with contractors in your business. Too many times we've seen business owners who have shared a folder just from their MyDrive with a contractor. Maybe you've got a virtual assistant who's doing marketing stuff or data entry or something else for you, and that person is creating files on your behalf, but they're still the owner of those files. And if they're the owner of those files, they always have permission to delete those files. And not many people are deleting files vindictively. That doesn't often happen. It does happen, but it doesn't often happen. What usually happens is a contractor has built something for you, and then 5 years down the line, they start to run out of space on their Gmail. And because they're too cheap to pay a little bit for some extra Gmail storage, they go into their Google Drive and they say, where are my old clients that I'm no longer working with? I'll just go and delete all that shit that I created for them because I no longer need to access it. And they probably don't even think about you needing to still access it. And what we get is that customer calling us. They call our help desk and they say, hey guys, all these files have just disappeared from my Google Drive. Google has lost my files. And Google has not lost your files. Your files have been lost by the person who owned the files outside your company that didn't share them with shared drives. So I hope I've answered this question nice and fully for you. Great question. For the Miller family, there's a good movie called Ask the Millers, which is pretty funny, or I think We're the Millers, I think it might be called. But anyway, this is obviously the Miller family, which are pretty Google savvy. I would say go for at least the business standard edition to make the best use of things like recording and shared drives, because they're really great features. The other cool thing about recording inside of Google Meet is it automatically puts the recording straight into your Google Drive. So you don't have to download it or upload it manually or let it convert at the end of the meeting like you do have to do with Zoom. It just basically leaves it there right in your Google Drive, and then you can move it to the right place. So interesting question there. The only other thing that comes to mind here is that there are other ways of actually using identity inside of Workspace. You can use Google Credential Provider to log into Windows computers or Mac computers and actually have your computer connected to the Google ecosystem. That is an enterprise feature, so you do need to be on an enterprise plan for that. But you can also use Google Cloud Identity if you want to give someone a Google identity with your domain name without giving them a mailbox. And so you can actually create a hybrid setup where some users will just have a mailbox, but maybe other users, you just want to give access to view a Google site, and you want to be able to lock down their account so you know that only people that are under your domain have access to certain resources. I have other videos on those, and if you're interested in that, check them out on the channel. Or if you've got questions, drop them down into the questions. Ask.peter.tv is the best place to ask your questions, and I'll do an upcoming video when I can. All right. What a great question. That was a good one. Okay, so Sergio, thanks for answering my question. Rock and roll. Follow up on subscription overload. Okay. We use Google Workspace and enjoy the free features a lot. What should be the approach to going from free to the useful? All right. For example, Google Sheets, Project Tracker, to maybe using Asana with a team of 20 plus. Great question. So what we're really talking about here is the transition from, should I use Google as an ecosystem, which basically gives me the products all in one place, versus when do I go and get outside help for my other operations inside the business? When is it the right time to invest in an external tool to get things done? And I would say if you've got less than 20 employees, you can probably do most things in the business for free or inside Google Workspace. Now, what I mean by that is if you've got a small business and you just need to collaborate on documents, you need to get the basics done inside the business in terms of task coordination. Most things can be done inside of Google. Now, we have actually created something called the Growth Roadmap. And that growth roadmap is actually a guide for how you can get through the different stages of business growth and make sure you manage the right technology at the right time. Now, if you head along to our website or you go to this blog here, I'll drop the blog in here for those that are on the live chat. Otherwise, you can just Google this blog title and you will find it. You can see here that we've got a dedicated video, which is not appearing to be embedded properly, but that's okay. We've got a dedicated video. If you Google our channel for Growth Roadmap, you'll find it. Oh, there we go. It finally decided to show up. That video there will actually take you through the different stages of business growth. So you can see here, launch, startup, growth, and scale. Really, we're about getting the basics right, getting your security right here. And then you want to make sure that you've got tasks managed. Now, Asana is free for up to 15 people. So the first 15 people that you add to Asana are actually going to be free. And it's really only when you get into growth mode that we start to recommend tools like Copper, Hiver, maybe Dialpad for having a business phone system set up, and then starting to get into your Zaps so you can start to build out some automations. So when you're in that growth phase, they're the kind of tools that you start to look at using first. Of course, if you want to get support for those or you want to purchase those tools, it's best to purchase them through us because we can get you access to some discounts sometimes, but also there's no extra cost going through itGenius, but you get the added benefit of being able to come to us for support, which is pretty cool. Now, if you're a paid member of Concierge, you actually get unlimited zaps on some of our concierge plans. And so on our growth plan, you can use our team to actually build out as many automations or as many zaps as you want inside the business. If you have someone hitting your website and you want them to automatically be added as an opportunity inside your CRM system, boom, we can make that happen. If you've got someone filling out a form and you want them to automatically have an Asana task created, boom, we can make that happen. If you have a customer or a salesperson close a deal inside your CRM system and you automatically want to create a project inside Asana to deliver that, and then a folder inside of Google Drive for their working files. So you have a job folder or you have a customer folder inside of Google Drive. They're all the things that can be implemented and automated with Zapier, which is pretty damn cool. So if you're interested in that, have a chat to our team. I would say that things like tasks inside Google Workspace are pretty primitive. There are a number of tools in the Google ecosystem that are quite basic. Tasks is one of them. It's getting better and better all the time, but that's still something that I don't really recommend businesses of any size use unless you're just like one or two people, you can probably get away with it. But switching to a tool like Asana, particularly that it's free for the first 15 people, is a great move. When you're ready to move up to a paid plan, you can have a chat to our team and they'll be very happy to help you out, both with helping organize your licenses, but also helping to configure Asana, set up all the automations inside Asana, setting up the different teams and different projects and the workflows. And, we've been implementing Asana for over a decade now, and it's literally in, I think, about 500 or 600 businesses, thanks to us. And those businesses use it in many different ways. And our team have got a pretty good lay of the land in how you can set up automations and workflows inside a tool like that to actually get more done inside your business. So if you're interested, jump on a link down below, book in a free consult with our team, and they'll be very happy to help. Okay. Do we have offices in New Zealand? No, but we deliver worldwide. So we're not quite 24 hours yet. We cover Australian business hours and most of the West Coast and Central Time of the US as well. Eventually, we will be 24 hours, probably sometime in the next 12 to 24 months. But we have hundreds of customers in New Zealand because, the time zone's so close. And I've got family in Auckland, so I'm in New Zealand from time to time as well. I've got a special link there. So hello from Auckland. I've got family in Remuera, Shane. But we are around. We can deliver anywhere in the world. We deliver anywhere in Australia. Most of our team, well, all of our team actually work from home or the road. We don't have any offices anywhere. Sometimes the team will work from co-working spaces or little hubs from time to time. But no, everyone works from home. We've got nearly 60 people across the group, and everyone works independently from wherever they like. We've got people in Melbourne, primarily Philippines, Melbourne. Do we have Sydney? I'm not sure. We've got one. Our marketing manager's in Auckland, actually. So we've got one person in Auckland. So all over. Right. Cool. So another question here. We have acquired subscriptions to some of the applications supported by itGenius. Is it too late to transfer billing and take advantage of your offers? No, it isn't. If you have subscriptions active already, then just have a chat to our team. And in most cases, we can transfer the billing into us. You may be eligible for discounts. You are definitely eligible for additional support with us if you're a concierge member. So yeah, definitely jump on to that. All right, great. I'm going to go to my next questions. Let me go and find those. Where are they? All right, I'm just kind of flipping between popular and recent, so I make sure I get as many as possible. This is going to be one of my last streams that I do in this studio. It served me well, but I'm actually going to be moving out of this place, and I'm going to spend some time on the road and some more time traveling. So you're going to get a lot more streams in different interesting places, which is going to be fun. I was in over the holidays. I was in Taiwan, so I did some streams from Taipei, which is pretty cool. Then I did some from Malaysia, ran a boot camp from Malaysia, and I basically tested out, can I still get my streams to work on the road, which they did, with a few little quirks. We're getting them better, but I'm going to be taking the show on the road. Okay, cool. All right. Oh, this is a great question. Let me do this one. Oh, I see. That button puts them up the top. Okay, cool. Let's open that up. Okay. It appears to be necessary in many cases to allow less secure apps to connect marketplace apps with workplace, and even in some cases, native Google tools. What's the background behind this setting, and are there genuine risks in leaving this set to allowed for all users? Graham. Great question, Graham. Yes, there is a setting in the administration panel. I believe it's in security settings, which allows you to basically use your team's logins to connect using single sign-on to what it calls less secure apps. Now, I don't personally know the individual background behind this setting, but what I do know is the philosophy of Google and Apple and other top-tier developers and operating system providers is, as much as possible, to try and do the best they can to stop security infiltrations and attacks happening on their platforms. Even if it was a third-party developer or a third-party app that was compromised, or that was a complete scam, or that had a security vulnerability that was basically to blame for the issue, Google or Microsoft or Apple are the ones that look bad. And if you have, as an example, an Apple computer, if it had a really weak operating system and it was getting hacked all the time and the computer was breaking all the time, the consumer is just going to think Apple computers are bad. I bought this Apple computer and it keeps having problems. And so the philosophy behind starting to restrict the different kinds of apps that are allowed to connect to these ecosystems, Google being an ecosystem, means that they're trying to basically bit by bit lock things down and stop unidentified developers or non-reviewed developers from accessing different areas of the ecosystem. And so that's basically what this button is referring to here, allowing a less secure app to connect to Google Marketplace, or allowing a less secure app to connect to an individual account, is basically you're loosening the belt a little bit on your security inside the business. Now, I'm not sure what our setting is internally inside our business. I would be curious for you to go through your team and go through your business and see what kind of apps are your team connecting to. Are there any of them that Google deems to be less secure? We haven't actually locked this down in our business, but it probably wouldn't be a bad setting for us to switch on. We do have a security officer in our business, so I'll probably be raising it with them and having them do a little bit of an audit. Most small businesses, there's this kind of like seesaw between convenience and security. And so these are the kind of things that you'd want to delve into if you've got at least 20 employees, starting to close some of the little 1%ers on your security. For most, excuse me, for most business owners that we work with, the key things that you need to get right for your security are going to do an 80-20 on security for a small business. That's like getting two-factor authentication set up, using a password manager, something like LastPass. Whether or not you use LastPass anymore is still up for question at the moment. Using things like security keys if you want to get a bit more serious. A plug-in physical USB security key to access your account, and then making sure that you're not sharing any accounts between people. You're using tools like the delegated mailbox feature inside Google Workspace to share accounts between each other. So you're not just sharing passwords in plain text with each other. They're going to get you 80 to 90% of the way there of locking down the security. But as you grow and scale and you start to look a little bit more seriously at security in your business, and that becomes more important to actually plug the longer tail of the security holes or security vulnerabilities, this is a feature that you might want to look into. So great feature. I don't think there are any well, are there any genuine risks is the question. Yes, there is a genuine risk. The genuine risk is that one of your team members adds a third-party developed tool to their account, and there is a vulnerability in some way inside that tool, or they straight up click on a scam tool, and then they get hacked that way. Now, let me share what one of those vulnerabilities looks like. For the most part, once you enable two-factor authentication, your Google account is pretty much locked down to anyone. There isn't really a way for someone to get into your account unless they steal your mobile phone in a sophisticated attack and port your number to somewhere else and use your phone number and your password to gain access to your account. That is certainly possible, but it's pretty rare. When Google had a big problem over the last couple of years with phishing emails, someone would send you an email, it would look like a Google Doc, you would click on that Google Doc and it would say, hey, please sign into your Google account to access this Dropbox file or access this Google document file. People would be putting in their username and password, and that would send that off to a team of hackers because it was a fake web page that just looked like a Google Doc, which wasn't actually the real thing. And what that would do was, if you ever saw that happen, would go through all your contacts and spam all your contacts and then lock down your account and basically steal it from you. Pretty bad, right? Now, for the most part, when we implemented two-factor authentication, took the mobile phone number off two-factor, that solved all of those problems. So 90% of those security problems actually disappeared when we did that. However, there was one little caveat to that. There was one little instance where people could still get access to your account, even if you had locked down with two-factor authentication. And that was actually through the Google Workspace marketplace. And what was happening was developers were creating tools and plugins that were then being listed into the Google Marketplace, and they were sending out a phishing link. And the phishing link, instead of going to a fake website, which was pretty easy for Google to detect and give users a warning, they would actually send you to a plugin. And that plugin would use Google's APIs to make a legitimate request to your account to log in and a legitimate request to your two-factor authentication. Boom, they're into your account. And so in that case, locking down for less secure apps to not have access to your account may help. I don't know if the less secure accounts setting in particular that you've referenced here in this question would help there. But what might actually be helpful is Google starting to lock down their marketplace in the same way that they're locking down the Android marketplace with identified developers, identified apps, and a lot more scrutiny in what applications and plugins are being added there. In general, you want to make sure that your team are not just adding random plugins to their accounts willy-nilly, but if we're in small business land, there is always going to be that balance of convenience and security, meaning that if, for example, you chose to switch from a blacklist to a whitelist in the plugins that your team can add, meaning that only plugins that you allow and specifically name one by one into your account, what that would mean is that your team would lose out on being able to spontaneously add plugins to their account to get their work done. Every time a plugin needs to be added, they're going to have to reach out to you or reach out to the IT administrator inside your business and actually request that something gets added to the allowed list for them to get access to anything. So we're always kind of in this place of balancing security and balancing out convenience and balancing out, how our end users are going to be working. That's something that you get to manage as you grow and as you scale the business. Great question. Love that one. All right, let's mark that as answered. Cool. All right, I've answered that one from Shane, so I'm going to mark that as answered, and I've answered that one from Miller. All right, what a great question. Getting into the weeds now. We've kind of covered all the basic questions on the channel over the years. Now we'll get into the real juicy ones. All right, I've answered that one. Okay, cool. Here's another good one. Okay, question from Dika Darlin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is there any free Office apps alternatives, but still having all the features from Microsoft Office? And can they do any kind of function on an Excel that Microsoft can do? Great question. Google have actually built in a basic Microsoft document editor into Google Drive. It was previously based on technology called Quick Office. It's now been built into Google Drive. And many of the features, not every single one, but many of the features of Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel and even PowerPoint are now available right inside of Google Drive for free and natively. And you can do some pretty cool things there. Like I think they're now even allowing the documents to automatically save, which you can't even do in Microsoft, I don't think. I'm not sure if that feature is even there. But the documents will automatically save, and they're even starting to, I think, over time, build in some collaboration features there as well, which is pretty cool. Now, can it do every single thing that Microsoft can do? No. Can it do it in the same way? No. They're a little bit janky in the Google Drive interface. They're not quite perfect, but they are getting there, and Google are putting development resources in to building that up over time. So it is actually getting better and better over time. Now, what other alternatives do you have? Well, there is a software set called OpenOffice. And OpenOffice actually allows you to work with Microsoft documents for free. It's an open source project. You can install it on a Mac or a Windows machine and get access to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on Chromebooks or Chromeboxes, so Chrome devices are out. But if you do run a Linux container on a Chrome device, you might be able to get access to that way, but I haven't tested that out myself personally. So a couple of different options there to get access to these features. If you're interested in that, you can search those online. If you're on Google Drive, you've got access to the tools right there. Cool, good question. That was a nice, easy one. Okay, we've got a question here from Carl Patterson. Question from Carl Patterson. My business partner always had our folder for our business in her My Drive, same as me, and could access it from there. Now she only sees our business folder in Shared Drive, but some of our business files have randomly shown up in each of our My Drives. Oh, that is a very, very interesting one. And I know exactly what has gone on here. So when businesses are transitioning from storing things inside their My Drive, and they're transitioning over and into Google Drive, into shared drives. Let me start that again. When you've originally stored your files and documents inside your My Drive and you're switching over to using Google Shared Drives, an interesting process happens. You switch the ownership of a file into the shared drive. And I'm going to draw this one out because it's going to make it a little bit easier to understand the difference between My Drive and the difference between a shared drive. And so if we have a My Drive folder here, My Drive, inside that folder, you're going to have a bunch of individual files. And let's just imagine that the lines that I've drawn here are your individual files. Now, each one of those files can either be created by you. So I'm going to put PM here and PM here and PM here. But if you've actually shared this folder from your My Drive out to someone else, and it may even be sitting inside their My Drive, right? So this is Bob's My Drive. Well, what can actually happen is that Bob might place a file inside your drive. And so you own the folder, but Bob owns the file. Isn't that crazy, huh? And this is where we run into the issue where maybe Bob has a Gmail account, he's created files for you as a contractor. One day he deletes those files and they disappear from your My Drive. But I've done plenty of videos on that, so we're going to stick away from that topic. Let's talk about how we transition then to a shared drive. So shared drives are a new feature from Google, which give you some pretty cool features, like the ability to set up a file where people can add files and folders, but they can't delete them. So this is a shared drive. And this shared drive is actually owned by the company. So I'm going to call this shared drive itGenius.com. And when I place files into that shared drive, as long as I've actually chosen the correct settings inside the shared drive, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. If I place something in there from my Drive, let's say I go to my Drive and I drag and drop something into the shared drive, I no longer own the file. Now that file is owned by itGenius. It's owned by the shared drive owner. If Bob puts a file in from his My Drive, then itGenius is now the owner of that file. Now, what happens when we're in this situation here, right? And we've got a mix of all these files and folders, and I'm using some of them in my drive, and my colleague is using some of them in their drive. Maybe it's a business partner, maybe it's someone outside your business, and we migrate them down to a shared drive. Well, you're only allowed to move the files that you own. And Bob is only allowed to move the files that Bob owns. And so if one person in your business has dragged and dropped a folder that they own into a My Drive, or into a shared drive, so they've dragged a folder that they own into a shared drive, they might not own all the files inside that folder. And so it's only going to move their files that they own from that folder, and it's going to leave all the other files kind of in limbo in your My Drive. So if you're going through this migration process of moving from My Drives to a shared drive, both people need to actually move each of their files, folders, and all their stuff into the shared drive. And once everything lives in the shared drive, it is then owned by the company. And it's very, very simple to know. Once it's owned by the company, then it's just all in one place and it's all owned by that domain name. So let's go and have a look at what that looks like inside of Google Drive. You can see here, I've got a bunch of different shared drives inside my Google Drive. And if you don't see the shared drives option here, it means that either no one has shared a shared drive with you, or you may not be on the right plan on Google Workspace. If you want to create a Google shared drive, you need to be actually on the business standard plan to get access to this feature. So if you're on the starter plan, it doesn't work. You have to be on the business standard plan to access shared drives. But once you access shared drives, you can create drives that people outside your company can use. So if you've got a Gmail account, or maybe you're a contractor to another business, if you're not the owner of the shared file, you don't have to be on a business plan to access it, which is a pretty cool feature. So when I've got a shared drive here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the shared drive here for our Attract team, which is our marketing team. And I go to Manage Members. Now, itGenius is the owner of this, and so I can choose who has access to this. You can see here I've got a contractors file, and I've chosen for contractors group to be a contributor, meaning they can add and edit files, but they can't delete files. So they can put things in, but they can't take things out. Very useful. You can see here that our internal marketing team are content managers. They can add, they can edit, they can move, and they can delete, but they can't change the people. They can't change who's on this actual file. And it's only the managers, which you can see is the executive group. It's only the managers that have the ability to actually change people or to change the settings on the shared drive. Very cool features. So that's how you set up a shared drive. Now, that's what it looks like if you're the owner of the file. What about if you're the person that it's being shared to, right? What if you're the receiver and you're outside the company? Well, you'll see some of the ones that I've been shared here. So some of these are owned by Onsite Helper, some of them are owned by Performance Direct, some of them are owned by Moriarty.co. And so these are all shared drives that other companies have created. And if I have the right permissions, I can put files into those shared drives, but then I'll no longer be the owner of that file. So back to this process here and what this looks like, remembering we are moving files from our My Drives into the shared drive. And when you do that, that looks like taking a file and moving it into a shared drive. And I can go to any old file here. I can right click and I can say move to, or if I want, I can even drag and drop. And when I go and drag and drop a file into a shared drive, it's going to pop up and it's going to prompt me, are you going to change the ownership to this shared drive? You're going to lose access, and everyone who can access that shared drive is going to gain access. Do you want to do that? I'm going to hit the cancel and move out of that because I don't want to actually change it. So that's how you manage migrating into a shared drive. The person who asked the original question here has obviously dragged and dropped. When they've dragged and dropped, they've ended up in a situation where all of the files or partial files have been moved, but each person needs to go and just clean up the other files that they own and move them down. Great question there. That's very, very common, especially with people switching to shared drives from other folder structures. All right, cool. No more live questions. Please be sure to continue sending through your questions, guys. I've got probably about 15 minutes left to answer questions for you if you're interested. Just let me know. Okay, cool. Let me open up from Tim here. Okay, so my advice for serious Windows and Linux users, don't bother. I think Tim is talking about Chrome OS here. It starts with being unable to share Office documents with non-Chrome users without a lot of really annoying converting and messing around, and it ends with there being no way on earth to replace serious Windows apps. Okay, interesting question. I'm glad this one's been asked because I want to have a good crack at this. The interesting thing is, if you are a serious Windows or Linux user, I would say that probably puts you in geek category. And if you're in geek category, I think you've got to ask yourself the question, what am I using my computer for? If I'm using this purely as a business machine, then myself being a geek myself, I want to focus on business when I'm working on my devices. And I don't want to actually be distracted by tinkering around with the operating system or having apps or the management of apps distracting me from just getting my work done. And so for me, I love the idea of the Chrome operating system being very simple, being deeply integrated with Google, because it means that I can just get my work done without distractions. Because Google also self-updates, doesn't require any maintenance, doesn't require any spam or malware or any other additional application or security programs to make sure that the operating system is clean and running smoothly and well protected. It means that there are just no distractions for me getting my work done. So I strongly disagree with this perspective. I love the fact that things are simple in the Google ecosystem because it means that I don't ever have to get under the hood and worry about installing apps or running updates or the potential of an update failing and causing me to be unproductive when I'm trying to get my work done. Now, the other interesting thing is this person has mentioned the sharing of Office documents. And sharing Office documents is actually not that difficult. When you're using something like Google Drive, you can actually share and keep a document in a Microsoft format if you want to. The challenge is, yes, if you want to work on a Google Doc and then actually convert it back to a Microsoft document just to send it to someone, that's going to get a little bit messy because your workflow is probably going to look like working on the document in Google Docs, which is nice and collaborative and easy to use and automatically saving and works across all your devices and is super simple and works great when you're working with the team. And then if you want to send it to someone, you convert it to Microsoft, you email it to them, they work on the document, and then they send you back a document with changes. Now, all of a sudden, you've got to try and merge those changes back to your Google Doc. Or worse, you've got to try and create a new version and bin the old one. But what if you've made changes at the same time? And so this isn't really a problem with how Google has their file system set up or how the sharing feature works. Those sharing features are pretty straightforward. The problem is the ecosystem. And that problem is if you are working with someone outside your business and they want to use Microsoft format documents, well, you're going to start to run into trouble because you can have track changes going back and forward and emailing documents back and forward. But in my honest opinion, that is a dumb way of working. When you can work with someone on a Google Doc and have a document updated live with the same version for everyone at all times, with a full revision history of every single change that's been made, with the power of all of Google's AI tools added into your documents, which, in my opinion, far outstrip anything that Microsoft has going for them right now. I think you are dumb to send Microsoft documents out on email, wait for someone to make changes and send them back to you. And let me tell you, I have let go of accountants and I've let go of lawyers who refuse to use Google Documents for working with us because the email back and forward was basically time that I was paying for someone to be inefficient. So if you're in a situation where you think or you have the perception that you need to use Microsoft Documents because that's how your clients do things, I think you should pick up the phone and have a chat to them and say, hey, give this format a go. This is how we work internally. We think this is a good idea, to work more collaboratively together and to save some time. If you send me a document in Microsoft format, I'm going to convert it to Google, and then I'm just going to send you the link, and that's how we can work on it together. Because let me tell you, it is a much better way of working. To be able to jump on a Google Meet or a phone call and say to your customer or your partner or your colleague or your client or whoever it happens to be, okay, just look at cell D4. Yep, okay, cool. I'm just going to change that formula to this, or I'm going to change that number to that. How does that work? is a very, very different way of working. And let me tell you, if you want to attract good talent to your business, if you're a business owner or you're a business leader and you want to employ millennials, if you think they're going to email Microsoft documents back and forward when they've got a Gmail account at home and they just spent 5 years at university working with Google Documents and in the Google ecosystem, then you're going to look like the idiot, and that person is more likely to leave your business and go elsewhere to another business that is going to harness the best-in-class tools that are available on the market today. Now, Microsoft has done a lot of catch-up work over the years. Dropbox works pretty good now with multiple people working on documents. They've got their own document format that they've brought out. Collaboration and synchronization using things like SharePoint and Microsoft Teams is getting a hell of a lot better. The Microsoft Online documents are okay. They're not amazing, but they're okay. So there are other options that are there. But if you're a person who is still like emailing documents back and forward, it's 2023. It's time. It's just time to get with the program. So there is one more part of this question that I do want to cover because I've got a little bit ranty, and I want to make sure that I actually cover all the bits of the question. It ends with there being no way on earth to replace serious Windows apps. Now, I've done a number of videos on this, on how to access Windows apps from your Chrome device. You can use the Android versions if you want. You can use a remote desktop application if you want. You can use a virtualization solution like Wine, which will allow you to actually virtualize a Windows desktop on your Chromebook or Chromebox. And so that lets you access it that way. You can use remote desktop. You can use the online equivalent of tools. This person is correct. There is no way to download the Windows version of Photoshop and install it on your Chromebook. That just doesn't work. You could even potentially use Linux if you wanted to. You can spin up a Linux instance inside the Chromebook and use that. So there are lots of options, but it doesn't work exactly the same as how you may expect it to work. After working with 5,000 odd small business owners over more than a decade now, I can tell you that most businesses are moving away from the old school install an app on your Windows computer and run things on a local database. And most people are moving to either browser-based or cloud-based apps. Most industries have made that shift now. Even tools like Canva are doing video editing in the cloud in the browser, which is pretty darn amazing. And so it's really time to kind of move with the times. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go with the Chrome operating system. There are certainly challenges and there are certainly use cases where it may not be the best fit. I don't think it's the solution for every business and every person. However, what I would say is that if you are a business and you have multiple staff members, I would be looking for the scenarios or the user profiles that make sense to switch to the Chrome operating system. Because if you're using Google Workspace, it is a brilliantly integrated system. It is deeply, deeply secure, and it just removes the distractions from your team between them just getting their work done. And that's the most important thing for not just your team, but for you as well, if you're a leader or business owner. Great question. Love that question, and glad to answer it on the channel. Okay. Cool. I have a question here from Raymond. I see that client-side encryption is available for enterprise, education standard, and education plus editions only. Any guesses when end-to-end encryption might make it to the business editions? And how do you deal with situations needing that level of privacy? How do we deal with situations? You upgrade to enterprise is basically the short answer. Many small businesses, and what I mean by that is sub 20 employees, are upgrading to the enterprise edition to get access to features like this. If that's something you're interested in, I would recommend having a chat to one of my businesses called On-Site Helper. That is on my links page. If you go to peter.tv, you'll see it. It says large business inquiry. The enterprise plan will help you to upgrade and get access to a bunch more features around encryption, data loss prevention, additional policies, credentials management, all kinds of amazing features for businesses that have additional compliance requirements or you have additional security requirements. I would say that it's very well worth the upgrade. Even if you go to the most basic enterprise plan, it unlocks a lot of really, really cool security features, which are very worthwhile, even for smaller businesses. And so if you're in the legal or medical or financial or consulting fields, and you really want to make sure that you have things locked down. I mean, we've got a couple of customers that are VC firms, and they're working on investment deals that are not yet public to the to the general public. They want to make sure that every single email they send is end-to-end encrypted. And so implementing a tool like SMIME encryption means that you're able to have full encryption end-to-end on your emails and a certificate issued for individual users. So lots of really great features there. Now, do I expect these features will come to the business editions? Probably not. I think Google's going to reserve those for the enterprise editions. Something like end-to-end encryption might come to Gmail. That would be one feature that would potentially come, just because everyone is, really becoming more and more security conscious. However, the challenge with email is, for the most part, email is unencrypted on the other end when you send it to somebody else. So when someone receives an email, unless you've chosen to use the secret encryption mode inside of Gmail, the other person is going to receive it in an unencrypted format. And so as long as small businesses are mostly dealing with consumers and non-encrypted emails, I think Google's going to save that stuff for the enterprise when there are IT teams who can manage it, when there are IT teams who can educate users on how to use it, and when there are IT teams on, on actually implementing those policies. And so if you're large enough to have an IT manager, or you're an internal IT resource, or maybe you're an operations manager who's also stuck doing the IT management as well, have a chat to our business on-site helper who can help give you some guidance. We also have regular trainings online as well. So just have a chat to our team. We'll be very happy to give you some guidance there. And of course, if you need any help implementing or rolling out any of these policies, or you want to upgrade and you want to see if our team are available to potentially help out with some discounts on enterprise licenses, there are many discounts that are not available to the public that our team have access to. And so it would be worthwhile having a chat to either itGenius or On-Site Helper for that. Click on the link down below this video and have a chat to our team. Great question. Thanks for that, Raymond. Okay. All right. Let me see here. I'm going to go back to my stream and just check if there's any more questions in the chat. Cool. All right. Another question from Raymond. Can a one-person business upgrade to enterprise? I believe so. I'm not sure. I know there's upper limits on the business plan. I think if you're over 200 or 300 staff on the business plan, you've got to go up. But I don't think there's a minimum to buying enterprise, because Google probably wouldn't restrict you on giving them extra money. So I think you're good. Cool. All right. Question from Suzkan19. There's some weird usernames on YouTube these days. I have a team of over 500. Is there a way to create a link, not public, to view the group Google Calendar, or do I have to input individual email addresses? Great question. I'm pretty sure you can find an internal Google link that someone would need access to access a calendar. So let me go and find those links inside my calendar, and let's see if we can get that done. So I'm going to open up my calendar here and zoom right in. And let's say, for example, I have my Peter Moriarty calendar here. I'm going to go into my settings, and then inside my settings, I've got a bunch of different URLs for the calendar. So there's a public URL to the calendar. There's a public address. I'm 99% sure I saw one the other day where I could actually share it. Oh, geez, I'm going to have to regenerate these now because I've exposed it on the internet, or I'll have to go back and have the team blank them out. Public address in iCal format. I've got a feeling this public address in iCal format won't work if I'm incognito. Let's try that. Bad request. That's interesting. Yeah, I assume that one would work for your team internally. Well, there we go. Won't work unless the calendar is public. But if it's public to other users, I think it might work. Anyway, that's not a great answer to that question. I might come back and answer that one. Another day properly. All right. Last questions, last chance. Drop them into ask.peter.tv if you have any questions. Where are my questions? All right, cool. So question here from CC Hopkins. How do I go from Workspace Business Starter to Workspace Enterprise Plus? I need more storage. That's really simple. You head along to your admin panel and you go to the account area. And in the account area, you can change your plan. But if you're interested in potential discounts, extra goodies, you can switch your billing through to itGenius, and we can actually help you to get more from your account. We'll do a free account check and a little audit for you as well. And just for being a concierge customer, you actually get a bunch of free goodies like access to our Genius Academy, access to some of our exclusive events, and you also get access to our support team on call if you do actually have an issue. And our team will do a few little extras for you just for being a member of our concierge plan. Now, it doesn't cost you any extra. It may even end up saving you money if you are on a discounted rate, which our team can potentially help you get set up. So if you're interested in that, jump on the link down below and we can get you access to Enterprise. It's super simple to get you started, and we'd love to have a chat about your business. All right, I think that's about it. They are all the questions for today. If you're watching the live stream, thanks so much for joining. If you're on the repeat, drop me a comment, say hello. Thanks for joining. I'm going to be doing more and more of these. So head along to ask.peter.tv and make sure you ask your questions. If you want to connect on socials, head along to my social media, also on peter.tv. And you can connect on Instagram. I'm pretty active on there these days. And if you're interested in joining a boot camp to come along and learn the Workspace basics, or we also have Systemize and Scale. Just ran one of those. Had nearly 100 people on the boot camp, which was just absolutely amazing. And if you want some help from our team, we're very happy to help you out as well. We'd love to do business with you and work with you. So until next time, I'll say goodbye. But thanks so much for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.